All right, guys, thanks for joining us today. We've got something a little bit different with obviously a lot going on at the moment with the whole COVID-19 thing. You can see a lot of people are trying to find out what's going on with the government giving out money and whatnot. And a lot of people have a lot of questions like myself. And so there's one person I go to when I need help with this sort of thing. And that's this gentleman here, Paul Garrett. Paul, thanks for joining us.
No worries, Phil. Happy to be here at work.
I've kept him here on a Friday afternoon, so I hope you guys appreciate that. We certainly appreciate it, Garrett. So there's a lot going on at the moment, and I'm sure, as you're saying, you're getting a lot of inquiries about what's going on. So I'm hoping you can run our viewers through a little bit about what they can do, some things they can look for and potentially claim, or how they can basically survive this current situation, which is hard on a lot of people.
For sure.
Reckon you can help us out?
Happy to.
Fantastic. So I thought what we'll do is we'll run, because obviously we've got a very wide-ranging audience. We're reaching 800,000 people a month, would you believe, Garrett?
It's very impressive.
Yeah, if it was on the expenses side, we'd round that up, wouldn't we? But it's all good. It's all good. So what we're going to do, I know there's a lot of you that are in different situations, like some of you guys might have been laid off from work or your hours might have been cut. Some of you might be fortunate to still have work or your businesses are going. Business might have dropped off. There's a wide range. Some of you might even be students. So what Paul's going to do today is run through the different scenarios based on where you might be at. What I'll do below is I'll timestamp them. So if you want to duck through to your specific area and hear what Paul has to say, you can do that. I just do want to stress that this is not financial advice. It's not taxation advice or any other sort of advice. Paul's just looking to help some people out. And also these laws are changing, or some of them aren't even written into law yet, as Paul will mention later on. So just be mindful of that. This situation is changing, but it's good to at least be armed with a bit of information so you can make the right decision. So without further ado, over to you, Paul.
Very good. So, okay, so which one did you want to start first? Did you want to talk about the job seekers, the one who've lost employment?
I think we should start with the people that need it the most. So let's let's start with them.
Well, essentially, the government is trying to stimulate the economy, essentially with a lack of business confidence at the minute. The issue for the government is how to still keep unemployment at acceptable rates. So we've got a civil society, and therefore the government brought out some measures to make it more pleasing or palatable for employers to keep employing people. Now, not everybody will be able to keep a job, and those people, poor unfortunate people who may have already made a trip to Centrelink, and they're going to be in receipt of around about $5.50 a fortnight in Centrelink benefits, and a one-off benefit, many of whom will already have received on the March the 31st, which is on Tuesday. So some of them will have already got their payment, and they're going to get another one, I guess, from on the 13th of July. There's different forms of people who there's also people who are on Newstart and on the age pension as well. And they'll also get some extra funds as well. So
the people that are already getting benefits don't need to do anything?
No, if they've already got a Centrelink registration, MyGov account, and they're already in the system, they're fine. It's the people who are looking to join the system who are not used to being unemployed, who are victims of this crisis. They're the ones who really need to get up to speed very fast with technology, understand the MyGov account and know how to use it. A lot of the lines that were forming, particularly you saw in the news, a lot of them in inner city Melbourne, were merely they were merely people sort of looking to get registered, and that was part of the lengthy processes for a lot of people. That's why you saw a lot of people waiting outside Centrelink from 5 a.m. in the morning.
And it definitely seems to be a lot of queues happening. So, and it doesn't seem like the numbers are stopping anytime soon. So, we've covered the people that have either been out of work or are out of work now. Next, where should we go to next? People that are still employed.
And there's obviously, I think the next step is we're dealing with the people who are vulnerable, people who are employed but may not have a job for long, or they may only be employed on a casual basis or a permanent part-time, where if demand for their business or their services or goods was to fall away, they'd be the first on the chopping block. It's those people which the government have announced measures to keep employed. This new measure, which is not yet law, is giving the employer $750 a week or $1,500 a fortnight if you keep these people on. Now, there is eligibility issues, and one of them is you have to show and demonstrate a reduction of revenue, of turnover in your business as an employer to qualify for the extra amount. There's the odd situation where you will have part-time employees who will be earning already less than $750 a week or less than $1,500 a fortnight. The government will still pay $1,500 a fortnight despite the fact the employee has been receiving less than that amount. For those employees who've been receiving less than the $1,500 a fortnight, it's actually up to the employer's discretion whether they pay superannuation on the additional amount of money that the employee will be receiving. So there's measures in place to keep people employed, and despite the fact they may be to a large extent underemployed, meaning that they won't be necessarily have a lot to do because the demand will be low.
Okay.
Yeah.
And flipping that around to the actual employers themselves, what do they need to do to qualify for these 1,500?
Well, the first one is that they have to register their interest. That's all the government are asking you to do right now. I've done it on behalf of numerous clients already. And the ATO, they've been quite good. They're sending back text messages saying that they've received the request. So that's all they've asked to put in place at this stage, and hopefully they get it through the Parliament soon.
Okay, and where do they go for that? Where's the
there's a website. Yeah, there is a website. I can tell you, I can cut away.
Is it Job Seeker?
It is close. Do you mind if I look at my
computer?
Yeah,
go for it.
Hang on a second.
We'll get it. I'll put the links down below as well, guys, for those of you watching now. So anything we discuss, we'll put the links below. But like I said, look, a lot of these sites, I believe they're only getting set up at the moment. I'm not too sure. So we'll keep it updated, or if it does change and you're watching this video and you know about it, put in the comments section below and help one another out. So.
Yeah, it's an ato.gov.au site, general/gen/jobkeeper-payment.
Okay.
I'm sure I'll send it to you, Phil.
So if you Google search job seeker, something like that will show up, I'm sure.
Yeah, job seeker, and it's a job keeper payment. And that's right, and this is for the employers.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of, obviously that looks after the employers if you're an employees if you're an employer. Is there anything else that companies can be doing to maybe get some benefit during these tough times?
The benefits to a lot of organisations, the number one is to have a plan and to know that there's a pathway forward as far as revenue, and to keep calm. You can be reactionary because the phone's not ringing. You think that it's all doom and gloom. Hopefully businesses by now will be cutting out the unnecessary overheads and the expenses that they're used to paying each month. Okay, so they're talking to their landlord if they have one. If they have a business loan, they're talking to their bank. Okay, they're already renegotiating their terms with their creditors with regards to payments. And they're doing cash flow reporting, or they're looking at their cash flow projections to manage through this crisis. Understanding also that for most businesses, their BAS will be greatly reduced from what they're used to paying for the March quarter. So which a lot of employers will have paid by perhaps late April. They've got an extension to pay by mid-May. So there's a timeline, there's a lag with regards to when you have to pay it. And the ATO or the government are giving employers and businesses a credit to do with their PAYG withholding. Now that's the money that's been put away from an employee's pay. The ATO will be crediting their integrated client account, and many business owners will know that that they'll be paying less BAS for the March quarter than what they're used to.
Fantastic. So that covers the corporations as well, I guess.
Yeah, but again, that's a benefit if there's less overheads, less cash going out of the business for GST and PAYG withholding, and even a PAYG tax instalment, where companies and businesses can reduce the amount of tax instalment they can pay for the March quarter, and even get a credit for the taxes they've already paid in previous quarters, which a lot of businesses are not aware of. They can actually get a credit for previous quarters, further minimising their obligation to the ATO for the March quarter.
Fantastic. And if you're a sole trader, and let's say you work for yourself, or maybe you've got a few employees, what's the situation there?
Well, again, it's the same situation with regards to the employees. You've got to withhold their tax, you've got to pay their super, you've got to make sure they're covered by work cover. But again, the sole traders are also covered under the example I mentioned before. There's many sole traders out there who don't have any employees, and those guys are all in the side of the government, as well as being looked after with this new JobKeeper assistance, which is also yet to be law, and hopefully they're eligible for the $1,500 as well, if they can demonstrate a reduction in revenue.
There's going to be a lot of employers out there that are probably struggling to pay their bills with reduced money coming in. Is there anything else they can do to reap some benefit or keep going?
What I would recommend, apart from having your internal discussions with the key people in your organisation and your staff, talk to your advisor. The government have announced measures for businesses that are sailing close to trading insolvent. You may not be breaking the law. There's new measures for business owners to trade insolvent under certain caps, and so you may not be breaking the law by being unable to pay your bills on time.
Now, Paul, people living situations obviously vary. You've got people that are owners, people that are renting, or people that are landlords. What's the situation there? Because obviously, I mean, it's going to impact a lot of the people on different angles. What's the situation?
Well, I think in the theme of the coronavirus, people need to work together and be mindful of the community beyond their own boundary. The situation for a landlord is such that tenants will be looking for some reprieve, I would imagine. They're doing this commercially with commercial tenancies. They're also going to want to do it with their homes. So the landlord and the tenant need to get a little bit imaginative and look for different ways and think laterally how to get through whilst keeping both the landlord and the tenant happy. The tenant has to remember that whilst the landlord can freeze his repayments, he will cop what is known as capitalisation of interest. So for instance, if someone has, say, a $500,000 mortgage, this will cost them around about $3,500 in the long run of extra interest on top of the lost rent. So this is only for a 3-month period as well that people are advocating at the present. So there may be a period of no rent paid, but greater amounts of rent payable later on. I've always, from my nostalgic point of view, that people share the burden. So if there's no rent for, say, a 3-month period, and you might be paying, say, around about $1,500 a month in rent, if that's $4,500 that the landlord will not receive, then I would think that perhaps the tenant may look to be paying, say, half of that, which is $2,250, over the following 9 months. And so it requires people being able to work together, staying civil, and having perhaps a side agreement drawn up to their current lease.
So with that, is that something they have to sort out on their own, or is there government assistance in this situation as well?
There's no government arbitration put in place at the minute about what's right and wrong. It requires people to think sensibly and work together. So it requires conversation and compromise.
And then taking it to the people that are paying off a mortgage, I've heard a little bit in the news about mortgage payment freezes or something like that. Can you explain?
Yeah, okay. So I just touched on that a minute ago. But where the banks can allow the mortgage holder to put a freeze on making repayments. That doesn't put a freeze on interest being incurred, or the time doesn't keep the time of the remaining mortgage repayments to stay the same. It'll extend that time and extend the amount of money eventually payable. So The banks won't miss out here. And I guess anyone looking at bank stocks, not that I'm a financial advisor, but certainly they would be perhaps looking at a windfall later on with people making more interest repayments rather than they would have normally.
And last group of people I think we left out, I'm just thinking of my grandma right now.
Yeah.
The elderly that are on the pension, do they fit into that first category you spoke about, or is it something different?
Yeah, they're not left out. They too will be eligible for a little bit of government stimulus. A lot of retired people are receiving a pension through their own superannuation fund, whether that be managed by themselves or managed by a larger superannuation provider. There's requirements for how much you should take out of your super fund each year. The government have announced that you could now, if you want to, take out 50% of that requirement. So, for instance, you may be required as a retiree to take out 5% of your balance. The government is saying, well, perhaps you can take out 2.5%. Also, based on the fact that superannuation balances are reducing as the market's heading into a slump.
Yeah. So just another way they're trying to stimulate the economy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So, but it's more for the retirees so they can keep more of their money. They don't have to spend it.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
Yeah, they can leave it in there and let it grow.
Okay. And while the government's on its helicopter money campaign, is there anyone else or any other things we haven't covered that people can look out for at the moment?
Not really. The only other thing I would suggest is the government, as well as trying to provide welfare for a lot of people, they're also trying to stimulate the economy. Okay? They're trying to give people access to instant asset write-offs. They did extend it from $20,000 to $30,000 in April last year. They're now again looking to extend that now to $150,000. And whilst that might be out of the reach of most people, some people who are planning to buy machinery or plant equipment or cars and not spend under $30,000 will may be more inclined to take advantage of that option and buy a business equipment for a greater amount, less than $150,000, and get that as an instant tax deduction.
Well, it's good to know. Well, yeah, like we were saying earlier, obviously speak to your own tax specialist or whoever you use. I'd say use Garrett, but this guy's flat out. He's good at what he does and he sorts me out. So thank you very much, Garrett, and thank you very much for enlightening our audience today on what's going on. And hopefully, this helps out a lot of people out there that have got a lot of questions.
No worries. Thanks, Phil. Happy to help.